Shalom and welcome to Shikul Da'at. I'm Rabbi Josh Rose. Sometimes you can't choose your battles because your battles choose you. In Parshah Shelach L'cha, we read of the famous story of the scouts, who are sometimes called the spies. They were sent into the land of Israel to scout out the land so that the Israelites could properly prepare to enter. The Torah says, when Moses sent them to scout the land of Canaan, he said to them, "Go up there into the Negev and on into the hill country, and see what kind of country it is. Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak, few or many? Is the country in which they dwell good or bad? Are the towns they live in open or fortified? Is the soil rich or poor? Is it wooded or not? And take pains to bring back some of the fruit of the land." So try for a moment to imagine what this moment would have felt like. Can you think of a time in your life when you were on the cusp of the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, or just before the start of some important change in your life? The anticipation and preparation of that moment? This is what the Israelites must have been feeling as they stand on the brink of entering Israel. The moment is unimaginably fraught because of all they have been through, and most importantly because they know that their own fate is wrapped up with God's vision for the world. The last two weekly Torah portion readings describe the inauguration of the sanctuary and then the lighting of the menorah. The sanctuary was now, to borrow a phrase, fully operational. What remained to be done? Just a short journey to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and the fulfillment of their destiny in the creation of a holy society within its borders. But the scouts' failure is colossal. They do bring back the report they've been asked to, but they go beyond that. Here's what happens. The Torah says, at the end of 40 days, they returned from scouting the land. They went straight to Moshe and Aharon and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the wilderness of Paran, and they made the report to them and to the whole community as they showed them the fruit of the land. This is what they told them. "We came to the land you sent us. It does indeed flow with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. However, the people who inhabit the country are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the Anakites there. Amalekites dwell in the Negev region, Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites," these are all the names of different peoples in the land of Canaan, "inhabit the hill country, and Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan." It was on the 9th of Av, that is on Tisha B'Av, our tradition tells us that this happened. This day of misfortune is still marked on the Jewish calendar. The Tisha B'Av is, the 9th of Av, as one of fasting and lamentation. We'll be doing a program. It comes a little bit later in the summer, so stay tuned for that. The spies have been derided and criticized not only by Moses in our story, but by every generation of Torah commentators that followed. But what exactly was their sin? First of all, we have to see that it was not inevitable, whatever it was. This event was a test of character. Joshua and Caleb reject the other scouts' report and insist that though it is a challenge, they must still go into the land and they will be able to triumph. But what about the other spies, the other scouts? What was their sin? Two common answers that I'm not going to belabor here are, one, their lack of faith. They should have trusted God, according to this reasoning, that God would allow them to conquer any challenge. And the second common answer is that they spoke derisively of the land. That is, they spoke lashon hara, or slander. And so they turned the source of blessing into a curse. But I think there's another error they made that underlies both of these classical answers. It contains a crucial lesson for us. And to get to that, we have to try to get inside the minds of the scouts. According to Ramban, that is Nachmanides, things start to go bad with one particular word in the report that they bring back. But he notes that the report starts well enough. He says this, "Since Moses commanded them to see, is the land fertile or poor, they answered Moses that it is fertile and it indeed flows with milk and honey. And to his question, does it have trees or not, they answered, and this is its fruit. For thus did he command them to inspect it." And note that they spoke truthfully in all of this, and they answered what he commanded. And likewise, It was right for them to say that the people who inhabit the country are powerful and the cities are fortified, for they were to answer truthful words to the person who sent them, that is, to Moses. And it was in this that he commanded them when he said, "Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak? Are the towns they live in open or fortified?" But then the Ramban goes on and he points out that immediately after bringing this report, the Torah says, or the scouts say, according to the Torah, "Efes ki az ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz, ve'ha'arim b'tzurot gedolot ma'od, v'gam yelidei ha'anak ra'inu sham." Which means, however, the people who inhabit the country are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the Anakites there. So Nachmanides, reflecting on this addition to their original report, says, their error was the word ephes, translated in what I just read as however, which indicates a thing's nothingness and inaccessibility to a person, in that indicating it is impossible in any way. So what they said to him was, "It is fertile and indeed flows with milk and honey, and the fruits are good. However, it is impossible to get to them, because the people are powerful and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the Anakites there." So Ramban's take is, I think, a version of the accusation of faithfulness. So that word ephes, which is sometimes translated as however, in other words, when the scouts say, "It is a good land, however, we will not be able to actually conquer it." So when they say that, the Ramban points out that word ephes actually means zero or nothing. And that is what he says is so critical. It means that they saw zero possibility, either that God could or would assist them. Rashi finds something similar in a later verse when the scouts say that the people are more powerful mimenu, which is traditionally understood to mean more powerful than us. But because the suffix mimenu can also refer to the third person, Rashi says that in fact the scouts are saying the people are more powerful than him, that is, than God. But I don't find this line of thinking satisfying for two reasons. First of all, if the question is about the might of the people in the land, it seems that simply wouldn't be a concern. After all, God freed Israel from slavery and destroyed all of Egypt, the most powerful kingdom in the ancient world. How could these scouts now be afraid of the inhabitants of the land that this evidently all-powerful God is guiding them towards? It just doesn't seem to make sense. And second, a theology that's centered on our need to believe that God will supply us with physical might and triumph when we need it just isn't compelling to me, in part because it's hard to accept that after the horrors of the 20th century, and also because I don't think it is instructive to us in terms of how we are to live. How does that theology integrate into my life? So let's push beyond this answer and see what we find underneath. The Zohar has a fascinating insight that at first may not seem relevant to our lives. So I'll read it here. The Zohar says, "Why did they counsel as they did?" In other words, why did the scouts bring back this report? They said, "As long as Israel remains in the desert, we will retain our position. Once Israel crosses into the Holy Land, we will be replaced by other leaders." So that's what the Zohar is saying was going on in the minds of the scouts. The Shelah, a late 16th century commentator, Isaiah Horowitz, has the same idea. He says, their objective was to make Israel remain in the desert. They began inventing stories to bring about a delay. When that did not work, they were forced to come out publicly with slander about the land. Their motive may have been the very fact that the princes such as Nachshon ben Amminadab and his colleagues had not been sent on this mission in order to ensure that they would enter the Holy Land as princes. No doubt this would have been the case, had not God decreed death in the desert on that whole generation. The spies thought that as long as Israel would remain outside the boundaries of the Holy Land, their own position as heads of the people would continue, that they certainly would not be demoted. The moral level required to qualify for leadership outside of the land of Israel is inferior to the moral level required for leadership within the Holy Land. So that's what the Shelah says. What strikes me in this insight is not their desire for self-aggrandizement. That, I think, is actually a byproduct of their belief that they could choose their battle, literally and figuratively. The scouts were honorable and decent people. The Torah says that Moses sent anashim, which literally means men, to scout the land, but Rashi understands the word anashim to refer to people of distinction and importance. So these were no ordinary people. These were respectable, good people. In other words, they're not in this to cause trouble, the scouts, but they believe their skills should be put to another use. They think that their success lay elsewhere, in leadership in the wilderness. They don't want to face the challenge that is right before them and that the moment and God demands of them. They want to face the challenge that they are comfortable facing. Here's where the sin of the scouts resonates in our own lives. All of us are beset with challenges and difficulties, things that demand our passions, our skills, our courage, our persistence. We're doing our best to face a world that needs our attention. The question is whether we're facing the challenges that we prefer or the challenges that are most important. To couch this in explicitly religious terms, are we serving ourselves or serving God in how we spend our time and expertise? Sometimes we get dragged into inconsequential battles of ego, or we fight the good fight maybe in our area of comfort. But we might ask ourselves if our talents could be put to better use and if there's a more important horizon for us to head toward. So, are you avoiding the most important challenges? The ones by which your character or your life might be defined? Often we're in situations where the contrast between our choices is not so great, but other times we see ourselves poised to walk a path towards the land of Israel or to turn away. The scouts failed because they simply didn't want to face the challenge that needed to be faced, the one that the moment demanded. When we do this, we serve ourselves and ignore a voice that calls us to something greater. The land of Israel is over the horizon. We can turn right or left or plunge ahead. We stand here along with Caleb and Joshua. Where shall we go? Thanks so much for listening. Have a beautiful week and a great Shabbos.